Good morning, happy Wednesday, and welcome in to the number one Group of Five college football podcast in the world. This is the Group of Five guys, and our mission is to be the voice for the Group of Five football programs that the mainstream sports media absolutely refuses to be. We need your help to do that. We need you to hit the follow button on all the social media platforms at Group of Five guys. Go to YouTube, Apple Podcast, Spotify, wherever you get your best podcasts. Subscribe to the channel. Leave a 5-star rating and a review. Most importantly, tell your family and friends all about us. Or you can download the Varsity app for free and listen to the show on there. On this Wednesday, if y'all thought I was going to miss today's show, you're dead wrong. But we have a MACtion mega show with a special guest waking up at the wee hours of the Wednesday morning joining us today. Plus, we got to react to the CFP rankings. There'll be plenty more. Hope you enjoy the show.
Have you had it from somebody born and raised in Lafayette, Louisiana, at a tailgate? Doubt it.
I said Michael Pratt has got to show up and play, and boy did he. 394 yards, 4 touchdowns, 48 rushing yards on the ground, and another touchdown.
Projected getting drafted between the first and third round. Like, that's incredible. The wide receivers are absolutely stacked for the Group of Five.
Yeah, I really appreciate you do for the Group of Five programs, and I think it's great. I think we should get more of this, but you guys are on the forefront of this. And
so I'm thankful for this. I'm glad that you're talking about the Group of Five because I think they get overlooked.
But it's a ton of fun to watch a guy go to the NFL from a Nevada or a Colorado State or a Middle Tennessee or an App State, and fans follow that kid.
Well, Jeff, I'm not going to lie to you. I'm going to give you credit where credit is due. Normally, I am in the Eastern time zone. Today, I am in the Central time zone. And, 4:30 wake-up call, a little bit different than the 5:30 wake-up call. I will be honest with you, Jeff.
Well, some people really care about this thing, this podcast that we've been building, and just really dedicated than others that are part of this outfit. Well, so, I appreciate the acknowledgement.
Yeah, well, I will say this, but for like 3 years, we spent time doing it at like 10, 11 p.m. for my and I was the early riser. But as you can see, I am at the nice place, the Aloft Hotel. You were Aloft Hotel, nice. Aloft. I'm not sure how you say it, in Birmingham, Alabama. They pushed I knew they scheduled that thing for 6 a.m. I knew that was a mistake. So they have pushed back our training to 8 a.m. like a normal company. So I was able to, get up and do this thing. So, of course, everybody last night, we played a little pool at the hotel bar there, 3-0 for me. And Then everybody was wanting to keep doing stuff. I said, boys, I got to get up early. I got to talk MACtion tomorrow morning. And you best damn believe that they had 3 TVs on 3 MAC games last night. And people were like, why is this guy so into this game? And I'm like, let me tell you something about a man named Brett Gabbert, Chuck Martin. Let me educate you fellas a little bit. So that was exciting. And then, of course, I had to educate them all on the actual rules of the CFP because they went through the rankings. And I'm like, oh, wow, Boise's going to get the bye. This is like angering me to no ends, guys. This is like, I can't explain it enough. I can't see it explained enough. And these people still don't get it. But before we go any further, guys, I got to do a welcome. We got a special guest joining us because we do have MACtion from last night. We do have MACtion tonight. We have some scenarios starting to get a clearer picture, we think. So we had to bring in none other than our resident MACspert, as we call him, Alex Shear. Alex, first of all, thank you for waking up and joining us this morning.
Hey, no worries, guys. It's as you guys continue to do this thing, I'm happy to be a part of it in some small way and happy to support you guys and your mission to spread the gospel of G5. And as I continue my mission of spreading MACtion.
No doubt.
Well,
welcome to the early morning club, my friend.
I know it's I don't like the early morning, so I only do this for special people, and you guys are pretty special people. So
I was going to say you look like
a 20s movie or whatever, where I got a typewriter in front of me and a coffee. I don't have a coffee, and that is going to come to play here for me throughout this morning. And as you guys know, we got to talk about Deca Gray Coffee Company, Jeff, Alex. DecaGray.com. This is roast to order coffee. You click add to cart. You put in the promo code GOFG. You put in your card number. You click purchase. That's when they roast this coffee. That's when they put it in the bag, and that's when it's delivered to your doorstep. It's damn good coffee. Get the Group of Five guys Game Day Dark Roast. Is of course our special blend, but they got all kind of other stuff on there. If you're just a regular light roast kind of guy, or they got the pumpkin one for the fall. They got the Christmas one available now, which I did order in my last order. So I will let you know the honest review. But look, guys, we got to talk about the CFP as it stands now. Okay. We are looking at a Boise State bye week in round 1. Now, the likelihood of them keeping that and not being jumped by a potential Big 12 champion, I don't know. Jeff and I have been talking every day about, well, what if, Colorado loses to unranked Kansas, but then they win the Big 12 and all these different scenarios. So that's what we're dealing with. So I want to get, Jeff, I'll go to you first on your initial take on just the CFP ranking as a whole this week.
Obviously, I'm excited about it. The fact that, it feels like we're getting a little bit of credit. Boise getting the bye at the 4 seed. The only thing that I'll say about it, and it's because I don't trust the people in that room mainly. I wonder if this is just a little bit of window dressing initially to be like, well, we had him at the bye, but at the end of the season, they'd be, well, Arizona State, they won out the Big 12, so they're going to jump or whatever they're going to do. I don't trust it fully. Super happy that they got it here. But we just got to wait and see. Because if this happens, we've talked about this, Sprouse. We talked about the Big 12 implosion. You have a little bit of an ACC implosion possibility coming down the pike too. I want 2 of our champions in. I want Boise State, if they win out, to get the bye. Army or Tulane out of the American to get the the 5th at-large spot.
Yeah, and I think for the American, a lot rides on what happens this weekend with Army and Notre Dame. I don't think Army has to win. I think it's very similar to Indiana going to Ohio State, right? I think Indiana's getting the same treatment as the Group of Five gets because they don't have the brand that Ohio State has. So you can see the narrative already being pushed. It's already being pushed on Indiana that they haven't played anybody. Meanwhile, Penn State is just hanging out, going to have a 5 seed, just handed to them, have a home game in Penn at a Happy Valley and a 5 seed without a single really decent win compared to anybody else. So anyway, they're already pushing this narrative of if Indiana keeps it close, maybe they still get in with 1 loss. Now, if they get blown out, which is what everybody is preparing to happen, they're probably going to get out with 1 loss. Meanwhile, Alabama's allowed to lose to Vanderbilt. It's
wild.
It's becoming more and more clear too, which what we've been saying is, you can beat your chest about SEC, you can beat your chest about Big Ten, but it's not. It's the 3 or 4 teams that are the big brands that they are going to push. And until the other fans start to realize that, until what happened to Florida State happens to everybody, then we're going to have this same issue going on. But anyway, I say all that to say, yeah, I think if Army keeps the Notre Dame game close or wins, of course, you've got a better chance of getting Army Tulane in. If they get blown out, I think it probably isn't going to matter a ton what happens in the American, barring, of course, Boise State losing or something like that. But that's kind of where I'm at with that. So
I'd be interested, Alex. What's your take on it? Because the Big 12 or the Big 10 is, kind of the quote unquote big brother,
the little brother in our backyard over here.
Yeah. So what's your take on the rankings that came out, and how do you think it's going to shake out?
Honestly, I think it's interesting when you look at it. It seems like BYU gets credit for losing to Kansas, right? But UNLV, who Boise might play in the Mountain West Championship, gets no credit for beating Kansas. I feel like that's not getting talked about anywhere near enough, right? This is a team who UNLV, who had all those issues with the quarterback stuff early on, overcame those, beat Kansas. And then now you're looking at them playing for a Mountain West Championship, who Boise wins that. Yes, I know the transitive property doesn't work in college football, but I mean, that's kind of a win for Boise State over Kansas too, in a way. But I also think Notre Dame, you guys talked about Notre Dame. It seems like everybody just forgot that Notre Dame lost to Northern Illinois.
Yeah.
Like you talk about the wins are counted just like the losses. I'm sorry, Northern Illinois was eliminated from MAC championship contention last night. Talking about crazy scenarios about them being eligible up to this point, but they lost that opportunity to compete for MAC championship last night. So that is starting to look like, frankly, a worse loss as the season has gone on. Yet Notre Dame, like, nobody's talking about that anymore. People are, brushing it off. And I think it's interesting how Boise State, people were literally in the comment section after the playoff rankings came out talking about Boise State. Well, they would get dog walked by anybody. We literally watched them lose by a field goal to Oregon, the number one team in the country. So I think the rankings are interesting. I think Oregon, obviously very deserving of that top ranking, the last undefeated team in college football. So I think they're very deserving. But you mentioned the Penn State thing too. Penn State lost to their one big opponent. They lost to Ohio State. Indiana now obviously gets that opportunity to play Ohio State. So I think it'll be really interesting to see how that all shakes out. I don't think Indiana beats Ohio State, but like I was telling somebody yesterday, you have an opportunity to prove it on the field. The Group of Five doesn't get that opportunity to prove it in the playoffs. You guys just decide, hey, this is the best Group of Five, and we're going to give them a charity spot. And I strongly disagree with that.
Alex, Indiana's got a pretty good quarterback. Any idea where he came from, or anybody that's been talking about him for a couple of years late now?
I've seen this kid play, and I've really been impressed with what he's been able to do. He's got a brother who played in college, literally right before he handed over the reins, and I want to say it was some school in Athens, Ohio. Don't know if you guys are familiar. It's the Ohio Bobcats that I'm talking about here.
That's crazy, man. I just don't understand how somebody could not be good and then go to play better competition, and now they're good. It's weird.
Right. It's so wild, isn't it?
The narrative that, it's funny you mentioned the UNLV over Kansas, because UNLV went 2-0 against the Big 12 and lost arguably, had some bad calls go against them against Syracuse. I mean, this is UNLV. I mean, we've talked about it too. UNLV is extremely underrated, and I don't think if you're Boise, you really want to see them again. To be quite honest, but it is funny. I get it. Everybody kind of has their bad game, right? Oregon struggles against Wisconsin this weekend, and Alabama loses to Vanderbilt and looks awful doing it. Georgia loses to that same Alabama team and looks pretty bad for 3.5 quarters. And those games are just all forgotten. Meanwhile, and we're guilty of this. Boise State struggles against San Jose State and wins by 3 touchdowns. And we're all sitting here saying, oh man, I don't know. They might not be as good as we thought. And I do agree with that, right? I watched that San Jose State game and I'm just like, man, they got some weaknesses. But when you can't watch anybody else struggle and lose, Boise struggled and still won.
Yeah.
You watch these other teams struggle and lose, and they just get this, it's like just completely swept under the rug. Immediately after Alabama beat Georgia, the message was, how can Georgia get in the playoff with 2 losses? When before Georgia even played Tennessee, it was like, if Georgia loses, can they still get in with 3 losses? And it was like, you have that message. And then on the other side of the coin, you have an undefeated Indiana that the message is, well, when they lose, they're going to be out.
I think it goes right back to your point about brands, though, right? If this was Ohio State who had 2 losses, we'd be talking about how do they get in. Indiana with 2 losses, they're never getting in. It's truly about the brands who will be invited versus the teams deserving to be invited.
Well, it's a group of people that are sitting in a room that get to decide the fate, and they all have vested interests. So that's what bothers me more than anything is it's not rocket science. High schools do it, junior colleges do it. Give every conference champion an automatic spot, expand the playoff a little bit more to 16 teams, and then you got the rest at large. Your next highest ranked. It'd be so simple. It really would. I don't understand the argument against more meaningful football. What? Because you just don't want to watch the game? You don't want to watch a blowout? Settle it on the field. Let it happen organically. I promise you're going to get more eyes, more meaningful football. I don't understand the argument against it. Just because you want more teams in the SEC or Big Ten in, well, then let's just do this. Let's just get the winner of the SEC and the winner of the Big Ten and just let them play one game. Because that's essentially what you're trying to do, but you're trying to include everybody else when you could just do the easiest thing. Expand it. Every conference champ gets a spot. It's more money for those schools, more resources to build. I literally don't understand. Get rid of one non-conference, one unmeaningful non-conference where Alabama plays Furman at the beginning of the year and crushes them 65-7. Get rid of one of those games, and then you have to have an additional game at the end. I don't get it. I don't understand.
Yeah, there's a couple things to it. You guys know I always say my book, right? Brands win championships. It's not defense, it's not offense. Brands win championships. And you're exactly right. And it's like they always go to this strength of schedule argument, right? When it comes to these schools. And it's like, well, if Ohio State beats Indiana and that proves that Indiana is not that good, well, then what is that? Like, you're going to give Ohio State the credit for beating a good team, but you're going to then say, well, Indiana's not that good. We knew they weren't that good because they didn't play anybody. And it's the same thing for a Penn State. You're going to say, well, they already beat a number. Like, well, who says they're that good? They haven't played anybody either. Who is telling you these teams are good and the strength of schedule is good? Because then you have, I'll go to the SEC. Like, I love to pick on the SEC is, they always talk about these quality losses. SEC beats up on each other, this and that. It's like, well, that's not true. When Georgia was dominant Georgia and Alabama was dominant Alabama, nobody beat them. Nobody beat them up. They beat up everybody else. Mm-hmm. Alabama, sure, they might get upset once, not twice. And also, sorry, Alabama, you didn't lose to the good teams in the SEC. You lost to Vanderbilt. I mean, who lost to Georgia State? Okay, like so we're not talking about. They like last night I was watching the thing and they were like, well, Alabama beat Georgia, Georgia beat Tennessee, Tennessee beat Alabama. You're forgetting that they all three have another loss. Okay. Yeah. And it's just like, it drives me off the wall, man. But anytime you have human beings, they're going to have bias. They're going to have, and again, like we say this all the time. You think they were sitting there watching the games last night? You have the committee show while there's games happening. You know what I mean? So I realize nobody that played last night has a realistic shot at anything. But if Miami was doing this the first 3 or 4 weeks of the season, like we kind of thought they would, mm-hmm. Miami might have been a 9-1, should have been a 9-1 team playing last night, and they wouldn't have even watched the game. And then they would have put them in there at 25, just to put them in there at 25 to say, like you said earlier, Jeff, like a little window dressing. Like, yeah, we'll just put them there. I also noticed all those Big 12 teams, the Big 12 and Tulane and Army kind of all hovering around in that same spot. But, Army's got a chance to do something spectacular. And even Tulane's got a chance because, Tulane's going to have Memphis still, Army still. I mean, Memphis is receiving a bunch of votes in the AP. So I don't know where they're at in the CFP, but we'll see, man. We'll see what happens. All we can hope for, listen, on everybody, if you're a MAC fan, Sunbelt fan, who's, kind of Conference USA, probably not really in this thing at this point, you got to root for whoever it is. If you want Boise, if you want Tulane, if you want Army, you got to root for whoever gets in that thing to put on a good showing.
Well, I think it's all the group of 5, right? I mean, if you want your team next year or the year after, whenever, your team's able to build a great roster and make a run, you're a one-loss Conference USA team or, MAC team. Like, you need good showings by Boise, Tulane, or Army. I mean, those are your top 3, or an outside UNLV if they win the Mountain West. Like, you need them to perform. So let's all, band together, lock arms, and storm the Capitol, so to speak.
What date did you want to do that on?
Too soon? Is that too soon? Sorry.
My January 6th is open, it looks like, Jeff.
November 22nd is a pretty open date. That matters to anybody.
Alex, we're not gonna pull you into this political realm that we sometimes get into. I want to talk about this too, the coaching vacancies. So I think we're up to 11 at this point in the group of 5 as of yesterday. Seems like more than usual, quicker than usual. Earlier in the season, and most of them guys, a lot of those guys didn't even get 2 full seasons. I guess let me start with you, Alex, because you always got your finger on the MAC and some people that you thought might be on the hot seat, might not. Ball State, of course, one of the open ones. I feel like you maybe called that preseason. You called a lot of stuff this season, so I'm saying like sharp, a lot of correct stuff.
Yeah.
Sharp.
Honestly, I think the writing was on the wall for Mike New, and I love Mike New. Honestly, one of the most genuinely good human beings in college football. I think it's always hard to come back to your alma mater because people saw you as the hero when you were a player. And now to put the pressure of being a head coach. I think the straw that broke the camel's back, though, was Mike New lost to Buffalo a week ago. Mike New was brought in to replace Pete Lembo after they fired Pete Lembo. So I think that for Ball State was what finally did it. And for me, I think it's really interesting because I think he was on the hot seat. I think there was a little bit of talk about Thomas Hammock on the hot seat. And I think right now Kenny Burns is on the hot seat. He's on a 19-game losing streak at Kent State. I know they signed him to an extension last year. There's been some other stuff going on. From everything I've gathered, he's very much on the hot seat at Kent State right now. And this will be 2 years, kind of going back to your point about 2 seasons. This will be 2 years with him. Now, you can't go 1 in 23 over a 2-year period and expect to keep your job. But I think it's really interesting how these coaches are starting to kind of cycle out. There's talk about possibly Jim McElwain up at Central being done. So it's very interesting how this landscape is shaping out. Joe Moorhead, I think, probably kept his job for another year with beating Kent State last night. But yeah, it's going to be very, very interesting to see kind of where things go. The Ball State one, personally, knowing Mike New, that one really hurt.
What, Jeff? So there's 11 open. Where would you take? You're a head coach, right? You're a young, up and coming head coach. Where do you? Which is the best job, right? Because you're gonna have. This is the thing that bothers me about this time of year, because what you're gonna have is the coordinators, the position coaches from the good teams, especially these teams that are trying to make a playoff run, right, are going to be the ones getting the calls. And this is why I hate this time of year, because it's such a distraction. And you're going to have a team I'm not, this is not any speculation, but damn well Brennan Marion is going to get phone calls this offseason, the UNLV OC. And if they're getting ready to play Boise State in the Mountain West Championship with an outside shot at making a playoff, and their offensive coordinator is now recruiting for Southern Miss, but game planning, it sucks for the players more than anything else. But I say all that, Jeff, what would be your favorite or your best job out of that group right now?
Well, if I'm a head coach or an OC trying to get a head coach job somewhere, I think there are better opportunity jobs, and there's some that, based on their support and structure and all those things, that aren't as attractive. I'm going to go with, I got 3 that I'm really looking at. And I don't know if it's officially open, and I've talked about this on Monday, I think the Utah State job is a really good opportunity. They seem to have support. They got the facilities. They got the resources. They've been good in years past. I think you could win there. And the Mountain West, who knows what's going to happen with more conference expansion. I think they're in a really good spot. I do. I'm not sold on all those teams that already supposedly signed going to the Pac-2. I'm not sold that that's a done deal. I think there's room for negotiation for them to come together. Outside of them, my next 2 favorite, ECU and Charlotte. Mm-hmm. I think those 2 jobs have the support. I know Charlotte's a younger program, but they both seem to have the support. They both seem to have the resources monetarily. And then outside of Texas, and I believe it's Florida as number 2, the Carolinas are like the number 3 and number 4 high school recruiting hotbeds in the country. And I think they get overlooked a lot. And I just think that there is a plethora of talent in the Carolinas that you can, and I know there's a lot of schools there and you got to battle, but man, ECU Stadium, they always got great fan base. It's a big stadium. If you can get that place rocking and sell it out, and they seem to have the support. And same with Charlotte. We've been there a couple of times, and their fan support is great, even though they haven't been necessarily good on the field. Just think there's a lot of potential at that university if you get the right guy in there. And interested to see who they, all these schools kind of start bringing in, and how quickly are they going to try and fill these spots, right? You just mentioned it. You got teams that are competing for championships. Mm-hmm. Are you going to go and try and post their OC? It just brings another level of distraction. I really wish the NCAA would put in some type of parameter that would stop that happening, but I don't know necessarily how you do it, and be able to hire coaches too. I see both sides of it.
Yeah, that's what I hate too, right? Because again, let's say you get a coordinator that gets the head job across the country, and then what else are you going to have, right? You're going to have, he's going to be talking to his quarterback, right? And let's not pretend that this isn't going to happen, right? You know what I'm saying? And again, I don't want to keep using Brennan Marion as an example, but I know he's probably the hottest OC name. And if he don't get a head job, he's, I don't know. And Barry Odom himself is probably going to be getting phone calls to go back to the SEC or somewhere like that. But you're going to tell me that, they're watching film in the QB room and Hodge Malik Williams isn't going to be like, hey, coach,
yeah,
I want to keep running this offense. And coach is like, yeah, I was looking at their roster. They ain't got nobody. You know what I mean?
Well, Sprouse, I saw this, and this is kind of to the point that we're talking about. And who knows what's true and what's not, but it's the rumor mill that spreads around. I saw this last week before Western lost. Mm-hmm. Todd Helton to ECU. Did that have anything to do with their performance on the field? I don't know. But you just start getting these rumors that start popping up. And if you're a player, of course that's going to affect you. If you're an underclassman, damn, is my coach going to be here? Am I going to be retained? You got so many question marks about the future. I don't know. I don't really have a solution for it, because I get both sides of it. Universities want to fill their spot. Coaches want a head coaching position somewhere. How do you pass that up? Future for your family. It's a tough situation.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that, to me, that ECU job is the best job. And I think Charlotte's right there. Of course, personally, I think FAU is a decent job. The problem with FAU is do you want to play in less than half full stadiums all the time? Like, there's those things that you got to look for. Fresno is a decent spot. Just with the history and stuff. There's a lot of talk about their lack of investment, though, and that they've been sort of getting by because of great coaching with Tedford and some of this other stuff. So now it's like, is this we may see Fresno State in 5 or 6 years, Jeff, like we look at Middle. Yeah. We had this chance. We had this window where we were really good. We had this chance to invest and get the facilities, and we didn't because we won in spite of it. And then it might rear its ugly head, here in a couple of years. Alex, is Ball State that's the thing to me, right? Okay. Let me backtrack a little bit. Cause you have now, right, Georgia Southern fans. Mm-hmm. They want to fire Clay Helton because their player threw a fit on the sideline and is not on the team anymore. And they somehow think that that's the head coach's fault. Maybe it is, maybe it's not. Maybe he's lost the locker room. Maybe he hasn't. 9 times out of 10, guys like that are on teams are problems for the whole team. So I think people that think otherwise are a little bit crazy. Mm-hmm. They might be a good player, but not every team has a guy like that does selfish crap and then puts out a statement and everybody feels sorry for him. And it's like, yeah, guys, that's not how it was going down. But anyway, Georgia Southern wants to fire their coach, right? Everybody wants to fire their coach. My question is, there's already
Toledo wants to fire their coach. You just hear those fans all the time. Fire Candle.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Candle's probably going to get a phone call from Notre Dame as soon as. Probably. Yeah. It's like everybody wants their coach gone, but then you look and there's 11 jobs open, and yeah, like if you're Ball State or if you're like, who are you going to get? Because ECU's going to get their pick. Right? Fresno's going to get their pick. Utah State's going to get their pick. Charlotte's going to get their pick. FAU's going to get their pick. So then, oh God, you're going to get a guy that you've never heard of, and then you're not going to like that hire either. Mm-hmm. So, and then you're going to be, the minute it starts going south with the new guy, you're not going to give him a chance, and that's where you're going to get coaches fired after a year and a half. So where does a place like Ball State go in this coaching search?
Well, I think Ball State, they've got a lot of random alumni ties, guys who have been through the program. And I think that's the well that Jeff Mitchell over at Ball State, the athletic director, that's probably the well he's going to dip into. There's a guy who works in the NFL, and forgive me, it's early. His name is escaping me. But he's very interested in this position. And I have it from a couple different sources who I will leave nameless today, that there's a couple relatively prominent alumni who are, locally raised, who love Ball State, who would love an opportunity to coach at Ball State. And I think that's the well that they're going to go to. For me, the concern on that is, and I wish they would hire externally outside of the Ball State family. And I frankly, I encourage this across all teams who are looking to bring in a new coach. You look externally, because then there's not an already tagged expectation. There's not already any sort of connection to what they've done as a player. You can now separate the player from the person and just let them coach. I feel like a lot of times when you bring on an alumni, there's a lot of pressure to perform the way you did as a player. And that's where you see some of these coaches fail. Some of them don't. Some of them do a great job. But I think that's where you see a lot of these players really struggle, and they really have bad tenures because the expectation was, well, you did this as a player, you should be doing this as a coach. And it ends up ultimately ruining their legacy at that program. You look at Tim Lester, the former Western Michigan coach, did great things, was competing for MAC Player of the Year with Chad Pennington. And they fired him, and that's kind of tarnished his legacy a little bit because people loved him as the player. People hated him as the coach. Of course, taking over after PJ Fleck was the impossible job anyway. But my point being, you bring the alumni home, they better have the really good coaching pedigree to back up the justification for you bringing them home.
That's a good point.
Wait, yeah, and the other part of it is, these are just the open spots that have fired their coach. There's going to be other spots that are probably even better jobs that coaches get poached, up to the P4 or whatever like that. And then, so I guess they're just trying to get started early and start their search early. There's a lot that goes into it. Jeff, I know you've talked to some people that are involved at those firms and stuff. Because I've always thought, what do these firms do? You know what I mean? But you had an opportunity to talk to them a little bit about that.
Yeah, I talked to the firm, and I can't think of the name of the company off the top of my head, but it's the firm that MTSU use to hire, or to do their coaching search, I should say. And I had no idea. This is a whole industry that is fairly new, but exists. And you think you're an AD, yeah, you probably have a short list maybe, but do you have the time as your sports are still going on and other sports and other things are happening at your university in your athletic department to fully stop and vet like multiple people and call and set up like all these things? So these companies, what they do is the ADs outsource them to these companies, and they say, hey, this is what I'm looking for in a head coach. These are the characteristics. This is the experience I'm looking for. Go find me a group of people that fit this. They come back, and then they just one by one kind of go through the list. They'll call, interview, see if people are interested. If they're not, they go down the list and they just keep going on and on. And we're gonna get him on in the off season. He's gonna be a great interview just to kind of shed a light on that process, that back end process of doing that. And they don't just do head coaches; they do position coaches, they do staff, like in that department staff. So it's a really unique kind of business, really, that I had no idea even existed. And that's a lot of schools are using these guys now. They're using these search firms to scour, hundreds of people sometimes to narrow it down to 5. And then you bring those 5 in, interview them, see who does the best, and kind of pick from there. So it's interesting.
All right. Well, let's talk ball here. We had some games Tuesday night. I guess first, Alex, what are the scenarios? Tonight is really the more games with implications, I guess I would say. So we have now Miami, Ohio, and Bowling Green, correct? Miami now 5-1, Ohio and Bowling Green 4-1 pending tonight.
Miami is 6-1.
Miami is 6-1.
Yeah, add a win to each of those because we're a week and a half away from being done with this regular season, boys.
So what are the scenarios? If they all win out, then you have a game the final week of the season, right?
Yeah. So the way this works is, fortunately, they all can't win out. We've got Miami versus Bowling Green next week. So one of them is guaranteed a loss. But if Ohio wins out, they're in. If Miami wins out, they're in. And if you guys recall, I mentioned Ohio versus Miami in the MAC championship at the beginning of the year. The fact that we're looking at them possibly doing that makes me 2-0 the last 2 years on championship.
That's pretty good.
Especially for the MAC. I'll take it. But what gets really interesting is we're still possibly looking at a 5-team tie with Toledo, Ohio, Bowling Green, Buffalo, and Miami. If they all go 6-2, things get really interesting. And I was working through some of the numbers last night based off what it would look like as far as I understand in a tie like that. So you throw out head-to-head because they didn't all play each other. You throw out a couple different tiebreakers. You get down to the ones where it's like win percentage against the conference, and it's kind of ridiculous based off of how they finish. From my understanding, if it gets to a 6-2 5-team tie, you're looking at Toledo, Miami in the MAC championship. Which how fun would that be, right? Now, if Bowling Green wins out, really, I think what helps Toledo is if Bowling Green wins out and Toledo wins out, because Bowling Green has would have the head-to-head over Toledo, so Bowling Green would automatically get in. You need Buffalo to lose to probably Eastern this week, and I think it's possible. you want to avoid a 3-way tie if you're Toledo. You're hoping for an outright 6-2 berth, or you're hoping for a 4 or 5 team kind of chaos tiebreaker scenario. But I think the most realistic is we're looking either Bowling Green and Miami or Miami and Ohio. I think those are really kind of the ones that are sticking out to me as the most possible. I think ESPN posted last night during the games, Toledo had a 23.6% chance of winning the MAC, and they're still very much alive. I think of the 6-2 or the potential 6-2 teams, they're the ones who have the best opportunity. But they've got a huge test tonight against the Bobcats, which I've got a hard time watching that game tonight, boys. I'm going to be real honest with you. But they got a huge test tonight in the Glass Bowl. What's interesting is up until 2016, Toledo had not lost to Ohio in the Glass Bowl since like 88. So they're really good at home. Toledo gets Ohio there at the Glass Bowl. So that's going to be a really good one tonight. But then you've got Bowling Green, Ball State. Ball State with that coaching change. I've seen some crazy things happen after coaching changes.
Yep.
This feels like it could be a little bit of a trap game for Bowling Green. You're looking ahead to what is essentially the de facto play-in game for the MAC championship. So I think Bowling Green, you travel down to Muncie on Saturday. This is one you got to be a little bit careful with. Buffalo, they've still got plenty of hope. They've got a bunch of things alive for them. Take care of Eastern. Take care of Eastern, and hope things kind of work out as you move forward. If you get into a 2-way or even a 3-way tie with Toledo and Bowling Green, Buffalo's looking pretty good. That being said, I do think that this is going to be a Miami is almost assuredly locked in, either by virtue of winning out or with a 1 loss. Ohio gets in if you win this week and next week. So a couple different things kind of shifting around. I think if things go chalk, we're in for some really exciting finishes here.
It reminds me of the gif of Charlie Day where he's got the whiteboard and he's got all the strings everywhere.
Yeah.
I won't show you my whiteboard with the strings. We'll say that another time.
So what can happen tonight that would either, like, if Ohio beats Toledo tonight, does that kind of eliminate the opportunity for Toledo to be involved in that big tiebreaker, right?
I think it does. I've mostly have looked at 6-2 kind of scenarios. 5-3, it gets a lot crazier, and I think that actually hurts Toledo because at that point Toledo would, obviously you have to beat Akron. They beat Akron at InfoCision, puts them at 5-3. If Buffalo drops a game in the next 2 weeks, that puts them at 5-3. I don't really see a scenario where we have enough 5-3 teams that would be fighting for a second place position. I feel like that is the kind of chaos scenario. Yes, mathematically not eliminated, but a lot of other dominoes have to fall certain ways because now you're looking at Bowling Green has to lose twice. Miami has to lose once. So no matter what, in a 5-3 scenario, there will be at least one team who's 6-2 or 7-1. So you're looking at Bowling Green has to lose out, or Miami. Well, now they can't lose out. So Bowling Green has to lose out. Ohio has to lose out. Toledo has to go 1-1. Buffalo has to go 1-1. I mean, it just Western Michigan, I believe, has to win out. It gets really, really crazy the further down this hole you go. And so I'm not too confident on who would slot in as a 5-3 team, just kind of depending on how things shake out. So realistically, you're looking at either Miami BG or Miami Ohio, or I think the best of the remaining, either Miami and BG versus Toledo. So it's going to be chaotic. Toledo needs to win tonight, though. That's first and foremost. If you're Toledo, you're hoping for a win. Ohio's looked really good as of late. Parker Navarro has been gunslinging. And I saw somebody post about, common opponents and head to head. Well, we just saw Akron just whip Kent State last night. And we saw Western Michigan come out and they played horrible. And then we saw Miami just take it to Northern Illinois, who Toledo struggled in a 6-point game with. So that's why I don't like the common opponent. You play each team differently. You prepare, you look at their strengths, you look at their weaknesses, and you prepare for them. So I hate the common opponent argument and, this team did better, so they're going to you prepare differently for every single team. So I'm excited for next week and a half.
I think like MAC is one of the main conferences, like you cannot do common opponents.
No,
it just doesn't. No. They don't add up at all.
Yeah, it's wild. Well, do we even want to make picks for tonight, or do we just want to let it play out and let it be like, hey, look, tell us who's in the championship, and we'll watch. All right,
Miami and Ohio are in the championship.
That's
like I said,
13
weeks ago.
Is there still a Miami Toledo? I mean, that's still on the table, right? That's pretty relatively likely because I believe that was my pick, I think. And then I made the mistake of picking Miami to win again, which I know no MAC team ever repeats. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens. Jeff, how many voicemails do we have? Do we have any?
3.
We have 3 voicemails. So here's the thing. We came on here, okay, a little unprepared, okay. Get Alex on here. We call him day before. He comes on here and hangs out with us. I'm in the A-loft. Jeff's just in home base, just doing what he does. And we're about to put together a show that goes right at an hour. I mean, I'll tell you what.
Professionals.
We're getting good. We're getting good at this. A couple of professionals. Well, let's get to these voicemails. Look, and you guys call this. We need to get some MAC.
We don't have a lot of MAC callers.
Every once in a while, Dan calls in or somebody from Toledo calls in. But we haven't had, we met a bunch of people up there at Miami last year in Oxford. We're going to get them calling in. I'm a little, get that going. I guess it's difficult for them to be up listening to a show at 5 a.m. when they're playing football on Tuesday nights. But
that's the trick right there.
So here's the deal. You guys keep calling the hotline, 615-900-4286. It's that raw emotion, pregame, postgame, give us your scenarios. If you've got a scenario that we miss in one of these conferences, I mean, the only one that's settled is the American right now. We just don't have a location yet, which probably going to come down to the CFP, which is like what we've been saying. If Army beats Notre Dame, that thing's going to be at West Point. If Notre Dame beats Army, that thing's going to be in New Orleans. Mm-hmm. Of course, pending Tulane beating Memphis and Army then beating UTSA, which are not cakewalk games now. Especially you get those games Thanksgiving weekend. There's not going to be anybody there. A lot of distractions, families in town. We're going to get so much more chaos with 2 games to go. I mean, this is going to be fun stuff. But anyway, keep calling that hotline, 615-900-4286. Jeff, what we got?
Hey guys, it's your boy Ace Boggs again. Just calling in to check on everybody, see how everybody's week went. I had a great weekend. It was awesome in the Sun Belt. Just wanted to clarify some things. I know you've been talking about Marshall and hyping Marshall this year. I wasn't meaning you when I say nobody's been talking about the herd. I just meant kind of nationally. But thanks to Troy, we're back in control of our own destiny. We still had some hiccups game management-wise. Like I said, maybe not the best execution at times, X's and O's wise. And we got some breaks through the special teams with the block field goal being a touchdown against Coastal. But it's going to be a really exciting week, really exciting end of the season in the Sun Belt, especially in the East the last couple of weeks. And now with Louisiana losing, the West gets a lot tighter. Any number of things can happen in the last couple of weeks. We go to ODU and James Madison. We definitely have our work cut out for us, considering especially we were 2-9 the last 2 seasons under Huff on the road. I think it's make or break time for our entire squad and especially Huff. We'll see what kind of coach he is, and we'll see what kind of team we have over the next 2 weeks. Excited to see if we get things done this weekend at ODU, which is, in my opinion, kind of surprisingly a 2-point favorite against us at home. Then we have pretty much a showdown for all the marbles the last weekend against James Madison, which will be a great game. Braylon Braxton's really coming into his own. The more he plays, the more comfortable I am with him at quarterback. I think that he has really, really been the best quarterback we've had since Cato. And we got to see more A.J. Turner, the best back in the belt. He's not getting the reps he needs, but man, I am excited for the end of the season. Hopefully we can finally get in that conference championship and win us a belt. We are back, baby. And then we're one more Louisiana slip up away from hosting. So guys, thank you for all you do, talking about Group of 5 schools. You guys got the best podcast around. And, if you ever need somebody to come on and talk about the herd or talk about the belt in general, I'm your man. Let's go herd.
Appreciate it, man. A little self-plug there. I like it.
Didn't they want to fire Huff like 5 weeks ago?
They were just going back and forth in the chat about that, about how things, specifically that part of the fan bases that are just so quick to, we got to get rid of it. After one tough loss, an ill comment to the media.
Well, yeah, that's what really, because Huff was going back and forth with people, and then after he made that Tudor's Biscuits comment, that's when it started to turn for Marshall.
That was great. And actually, Boggs in the chat goes, "No MAC teams repeat champion since Marshall left the MAC."
That's not true.
Oh, what you
Northern
got?
Illinois did it 2011 and then 2012.
Well, there you go.
Now, does Marshall still have? Does Marshall still have more MAC championships than anybody else?
I believe so. Yes, I believe that they have one more than Northern Illinois. Since the inception of the championship game.
I want to get to Marshall.
I do too.
Huntington seems beautiful.
Yeah,
I really want to get up.
Especially, I just watched that movie We Are Marshall with the kids. I'm like fired up.
You have to.
That's a great movie. My wife was like crying. Scarlett was crying like the entire movie.
Really?
Yeah. Emotional movie.
It is.
All right. Appreciate you calling in. Let's get to our next one.
Hey, Group of 5 guys. Tom here. I guess the only thing worse than Charlotte's play on Saturday was my cell phone connection.
He's one for
If this
Monday.
doesn't work, I'm going to have to send a very thoughtful message to AT&T because I pay too much money. Anyway, oh God, I'm so off track now. Anyway, yeah, I was very depressed on Saturday night. Maybe it was for my good that wasn't aired. But yeah, what I was saying was I thought I'd be calling up super mad that the Niners gave up 425 rushing yards to an offense in South Florida that had been struggling second half of the season without their quarterback. But I wasn't even mad. I was just sad, dude. like Charlotte fans we don't want a great football team. We want an average football team. We have had one average team in 12 years where we went 7-6. The bar is so low and we just continue to not even come close to it. I said earlier this year that 5 wins would be acceptable. We might still get it, I guess, with FAU and UAB being terrible. FAU just losing to Temple, who literally fired their coach afterwards, which is crazy. But yeah, it's tough. We had another crowd over 15,000, which is our capacity. The fan base continues to show up for terrible football. That's Biff Poggi is 6-16 now, I want to say, in 2 years. I don't think they pull the trigger after 2 years. I just don't think that's how our AD operates. But if we lose out, I think the question will at least be asked. But yeah, I mean, it just sucks, man. I honestly feel like this fan base deserves a little bit better than what they've been getting, with no bowl game since 2019. But yeah, Saturday was the worst worst I felt in Richardson Stadium since Healy was fired, and we were pretty dang bad that 2022 year. But yeah, that's pretty much all I was getting to on Saturday. God bless you guys, and go Niners, I guess. Bye.
Tom, you guys deserve a lot better. That fan base has shown up for that program. Well, and that was before Poggi's gone. Poggi's fired. Seems like they want to fill that spot pretty quick, and that's a good job there.
You're getting good crowds. You are a new program. There's like he said. I mean, there's no expectation, right? Charlotte's a great place to live. You're in a great conference with a great commissioner. I mean, we've got a chance to talk to him. I mean, to me, it's close. The ECU and them, right? ECU, yeah, big stadium, big crowds, great tailgate, a lot of history, a lot of tradition. But with that comes a lot of expectation. Charlotte don't have that. I mean, of course, if you hire you make some splash hire, you're going to want it to pan out. But ECU wants you to win the conference and potentially be a playoff team. Charlotte wants you to make a bowl game for now.
Yeah.
And I think, I mean, I don't know. That's a damn good job, man.
It really is. And I don't know who they're leaning towards. I hadn't seen really, there's one guy I think from the Panthers maybe that I've seen.
Yeah, Wilkes.
Yeah.
That's their dream. That's like their dream hire, but I don't know how likely that is.
Yeah, we'll see. That's a very attractive job. I don't know.
I mean, I'll tell you what, I coached my Powder Puff team circa 2007, and we were damn good. I mean, you want to talk about hard-nosed physical club. We can do it.
My son's flag football team just won the championship. I'm just saying. We run ruled every team except one.
What else we got, Jeff?
Let's get to our last call, boy, Zach Green.
What's up, guys? This is Zach Green. And we are coming up on what is probably the two biggest weekends in Conference USA for this whole season. Because the way I see it, the way I understand it, there are really four teams competing for this championship now. And for the most part, they play each other these next two weekends. So Jack State is, of course, at the top. They don't have a conference loss. Western Kentucky is next. I think they just have one conference loss and the tiebreaker over Sam Houston, who is third, with one loss without the tiebreaker to Western Kentucky, and then Liberty, of course, with two losses. But it's going to be a great race because this weekend Jack State and Sam Houston are playing each other. I think Jack State can clinch a spot in the championship by winning. And then Western Kentucky and Liberty are playing each other. If Western wins after Jack State wins, I think Western clinches a spot in the championship as well, with their game next weekend being the one that decides who hosts. And then, of course, Liberty and Sam Houston play next weekend. But yeah, from the Liberty perspective, it's right there, man. I mean, there is a chaos scenario, I think, where all four teams finish with two losses, and I'm not sure exactly how that would work. So I'm not going to confidently say we win out and we're in, but I think we would be, especially since we'd have a tiebreaker over two of those three teams. But we'll see what happens, man. We're right there. Western losing this past weekend was huge. Thank you, La Tech. And it's just crazy. It's been an up and down season. There's definitely a lot to critique. And I know the coaching staff and players are working on a lot of stuff. I mean, we've not played to our standard in several games this year. But it's not time to wring our hands over that, because right now we're coming up to the finish line, and the conference championship goal is right there. It's not going to be easy. It's going to be very difficult, but it's right there. And so Liberty fans, I encourage you not to black pill, no doomsday stuff right now, because we're right there pushing for that conference championship. There's going to be a lot to reflect on, a lot that we're going to wish had gone better and should have gone better, honestly. Not saying we should have been perfect this year, because I think Jack State probably legitimately a better team than us. But I know with Kennesaw and New Mexico State and UMass and all that stuff. But let's not worry about that right now. Let's go get these two wins, starting this Saturday against Western Kentucky. Lord willing, I'm going to be in the stands this Saturday. Maybe the best team we played. I don't know. I don't know who's better than Jack State, honestly. But we got to lock in, get this done. Run the ball, baby. O-line, keep blocking. Cooley, keep pounding the rock. Caden, scramble when you need to. Let's get this done. Should be a good couple of fun weeks in Conference USA.
And he got cut off there at the end. You know what's interesting is we might have a similar situation like last year where Liberty played New Mexico State and then played them again in the championship game.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have Western and Jacksonville State playing the last game of the season and then potentially play the very next week.
If Western beats them, right? Isn't that what has to happen?
Yeah, I believe so.
Mm.
Interesting. Jacksonville State is the perfect example of just because you start out a certain way doesn't mean that your season's over after 3 weeks of the season, ladies and gentlemen. It's a long season. Changes can be made.
Do we think Rich Rod gets some phone calls? I don't know.
I don't think so.
I don't like the retread route. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
If it was my school, so I don't know that many schools they're gonna think, well, you know, it didn't go so well at Michigan. Yeah. But
I want to talk about that for like a quick 5 seconds.
For it.
Do it.
There was a whole thing with Michigan that the expectation at Michigan was just so much higher. I don't know if you guys have read the John Bacon book. I know I'm doing a shameless plug. I love John Bacon, called 3 and Out. And I think it's a very interesting look at that tenure of Rich Rod, his 3 years at Michigan. He was, without calling out Lloyd Carr or anything, it seems like he was almost set up to fail at Michigan. It's a lot of people talk about programs are too big to fail sometimes. Rich Rod did not have the support coming into Michigan that I think he should have had. And just everything that went on during his time with the investigation to the over practice, just everything that happened. I don't think he got a fair shake. I think any school would be wise to look at him, especially after what he's been doing recently, to say, hey, you know what? This guy maybe was in over his head at Michigan. Maybe there were other things that people didn't look at, but I think it would be wise to give him a call because I think he's a great coach. And I'm one of the few Rich Rod apologists out there, but I will say I think he's a great coach and he's done a great job down there. And I think he deserves another crack at a big time program.
I mean, he's done a hell of a job at Jack State.
Yeah.
I mean, that is for sure. How long's he been there now? He's been there a while.
Yeah.
Right? Because he was there when they beat Florida State back when they were still FCS, I think, and he was there.
He has been there since 2022.
Oh, really?
Only 3 years, really.
He was at Monroe before that as the OC.
Under what's his name?
Bowden?
Who the hell was? Yeah, right?
Yeah, I think so.
They got that big star-studded staff down there in Monroe.
That's right.
And it didn't go so well for them. What you got, Jeff?
Well, just the chat's going. It's awesome right now. A lot of good back and forth. Just want to give them a quick shout out. Tom's in there. Joe Judkins, Steeple's in there. Aaron Boggs is in there. The Herd Huddle is in there. What else we got in there? Matt Hardigan I saw earlier. Shea Gordon I saw was in there this morning. Chad Hassan was in there. So a lot of good back and forth. And somebody asked the question, and we knew that, we saw this last year about Western and Middle possibly being linked to the MAC, but they asked would Western and Liberty be interested in going into the Sun Belt? How would that move? I think
my question is, would the Sun Belt be interested in Liberty? I mean, that's kind of been the thing, right?
Yeah.
Liberty, supposedly nobody wanted them.
Behind the scenes, yeah.
So
it's interesting. I don't know. That'd really suck for our Blue Raiders.
we got a chance to win the conference, Jeff. That doesn't suck. We're a playoff contender at that point.
Very true.
No, I don't. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe
it
just becomes Power 4 and Group of 4 by the time we're all done with this. Shrink it down to 8 conferences.
Who knows? Well, no,
we'll probably 8 auto bids for the college football playoffs for conference champions. So maybe that's what they're waiting for.
Wouldn't that make sense?
Yeah,
you could still do 16 teams and do 8 auto bids, and you could give every other one an at large, and you could still have 4 or 5 SEC, 4 or 5 Big Ten, and one of everybody else.
Yep.
And then it's like, and then they'll still be like, see, the SEC wins it all the time. You put 8 teams in there, one of them's like the odds
are in your favor. Yeah.
I mean, geez, guys.
Wow.
But that's all we got voicemail wise, Jeff.
That's it, Sprouse.
I had something else, and now I'm forgetting, but that's all right. I got to go to this meeting. I got to go learn how to. I don't know what I got to go do, but anyway, you guys keep calling that hotline 615-900-4286. We thank you for watching. We thank you for listening. Oh, I know what I was going to say, Alex.
Yeah.
Didn't you just change your name or something like that? Yeah. Give everybody a rundown, new name, where they can find you.
Sure. Yeah. It's a subtle change. After talking to some people, talked to some marketing stuff, drop the name podcast, or drop the part of the name, the podcast, out of it. And now I'm just the Mac Sports Connection. So, but all my handles are the same because it's a lot of work to change those handles and to find a consistent one across every platform. So you guys can still find me at the MSC podcast. And I talk all MACtion all the time, not just football. Similar to these guys, they do probably the best job in the country of talking football. As far as I've heard, and yes, I'm a little biased. I recognize that, but I talk football. I talk field hockey. Miami is on a dynasty run right now. Really excited for UMass Miami when UMass joins the league. UMass just made the Final Four in women's field hockey at
Nice.
in the NCAA tournament. So big stuff there. Bowling Green, they're hosting the women's volleyball tournament here this next weekend as the top seed. So really looking forward to continuing to cover as much of this other stuff as I possibly can. Got a great lacrosse season lined up. Central Michigan, gonna be tough again this year. College basketball's kicked off, so I'm excited to really deep dive into that. But you guys can find me literally on every platform at the MSC Podcast. And thank you guys for allowing me to be on this morning to help out with my Mac knowledge. I definitely appreciate it.
Well, thanks for waking up early with us, and thank everybody in the chat for waking up early with us. So make sure you follow the MSC Podcast on all the socials. Follow at Group of Five Guys on all the socials. Go to YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your best podcasts. Subscribe to the channel. Leave a 5-star rating. Leave a review. Tell your family and friends all about us. Hope you guys have a fantastic Wednesday and a fantastic rest of your week. We will see you on Friday morning. We're out of here.